Is hyperflexion really so bad if everyone is doing it? Show jumping, reining, dressage, general riding. In 2009, rolkur was thrust into the media spotlight. People noticed that horses' tongues were turning blue and showing other signs of injury and distress, which encouraged scientific investigation into the practice with disturbing conclusions. In this video, we will explore how hyperflexion affects the windpipe or trachea. The trachea is the tube that carries air from the lungs to the nose. It is made mainly out of smooth muscle, connective tissue, and rings of cartilage. You can feel your own trachea at the front of your neck for comparison. Normally the trachea is more or less round. This is the optimal shape for the flow of air. The trachea is affected by hyperflexion in different ways. One of the most obvious ways is by compression of the throat, which produces the well-documented effect of trachea kinks or folds. Just like how water flow out of a hose pipe is restricted when the shape is altered, airflow is reduced when the trachea is bent too much. The windpipe is straightest when grazing. It also has some gentle bends when standing or running. Just like the gentle bends in a hose pipe, these natural curves do not restrict airflow. But when the curve gets too small, the hose starts to dent in on itself. The deeper the dent, the worse the flow. When we look at this in the context of hyperflexion, it becomes easy to see how this is damaging to the horse. The blue tube on this model represents the trachea. As we pull the horse's head into a frame mechanically, kinks start to develop in the windpipe. These kinks get more severe the more the nose is forced inward, drastically reducing how much air can actually enter the lungs, resulting in partial suffocation. This leads to the next well-documented effect of hyperflexion, wall collapse, which occurs most commonly where the trachea enters the lungs. Trachea rigidity is somewhat similar to a drinking straw. It can flex a little, but when it bends too much, it kinks, which drastically reduces airflow at the throat. This leads to a vacuum forming inside the airways. This vacuum gets stronger as it gets further from the throat. By the time it reaches the first rib, the vacuum is strong enough to collapse the windpipe, similar to how a straw exposed to a vacuum flattens under the strain. As this process repeats over and over, the cartilage gets damaged, until eventually it is unable to return to its original shape. It causes permanent damage. By the time this vacuum reaches the lungs, it causes bleeding of the soft tissues or pulmonary edema, which is usually invisible, but in extreme cases may cause froth and blood to come from the nose, which can be fatal. Dissections of horses trained in hyperflexion have also revealed damage to the body of the trachea. It is theorized that this damage is caused by two main forces: muscular compression and vertical impaction. Because the neck muscles are tightly bunched and compressed, in hyperflexion, they may exert a crushing force on the trachea. In a tight and sustained environment, this muscular compression could be damaging. Hyperflexion also dramatically shortens the distance between the throat and the chest, which means the trachea likely undergoes vertical impaction when mechanical force is applied, which will result in kinks and bends in the mid-portion of the trachea too. This is also well illustrated in the model used earlier. It is thought that these two forces combined cause the damage that is often found in the mid-trachea, damage that compounds with other trauma to make breathing extremely difficult. This is likely why the horse may feel more obedient when in hyperflexion. It is simply struggling to breathe too much to resist. But the horse is a natural athlete. It needs to breathe well to perform well. So hyperflexion doesn't just cause irreversible damage, but it also reduces good athletic performance. The detrimental effect of hyperflexion on the trachea and lungs is a large part of why it has been banned by most equestrian legislative bodies. In the next video, we will explore how hyperflexion affects the soft tissues of the mouth and nasal cavities. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more.